All right, it's time to get set for a brand new year of entertainment. We've got so many things to look forward to, and I put together a list of the 24 things that I am most hyped for in 2024. I'm going to preface this, though, and say that this is not kind of inclusive of everything out there. There's a lot of stuff that's coming. There's also some question marks, like Beyond the Spider-Verse. I don't know when that's coming out. Hopefully we get it in 2024. That would be on my list if I knew that the release date was definitely going to be this year. I also don't know anything about the Mutant Mayhem Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game based on last year's awesome movie, and that would probably be on this list as well. But let's get started with number 24, and that is going to be Beetlejuice II, which is coming out later this year. There's no trailer yet for this film, but we do know that Michael Keaton is reprising his role. Tim Burton is back behind the scenes. Winona Ryder is going to be in this movie. Jenna Ortega is going to be in this movie. Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe, and probably lots of other guest stars and surprises and things. I think Michael Keaton is just a wonderful actor. He hasn't lost a step at all. He's good with action elements, he's good with comedy, and this was one of his best roles that he's had in his very long and very storied career, so I can't wait to see what Michael Keaton and Tim Burton do by teaming up again and bringing this franchise back to the screen. Very excited for Beetlejuice 2. Number 23 is Masters of the Air, and we don't have very long to wait for the beginning of this new series. It's coming to Apple TV+. It's from producers Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, who are back in the Pacific and Band of Brothers territory. We're looking at World War II, but this time we're taking a look at pilots that are flying these bomber missions and taking out the Nazis. But of course, there's going to be a lot of brutal violence, and a lot of these characters are not going to make it, is my prediction, which is a lot of what we saw in both Band of Brothers and the Pacific. This show looks terrific, though. Beautiful visual effects. I like the kind of nostalgic glow that the show has as well. It's definitely romanticizing and glamorizing some of the elements that a lot of people tend to do with fiction around World War II, but that era is so ripe for compelling storytelling. I can't wait to see this show, and I'm a big fan of Austin Butler as well, who killed it as Elvis, and it's going to be cool to see him, no pun intended, stretch his wings with some new roles in 2024. Number 22 on my list is Dragon's Dogma 2. This is an action RPG from Capcom, and it's been a long time since Dragon's Dogma 1 came out. I remember digging that game. Don't ask me anything about it, though. It's been a long time since I played it, but this game looks crazy and beautiful and ambitious. It's an action RPG in an open world, and it's very, very large, and you've got all kinds of cool abilities, and you've got these other characters called pawns that you can control, so you're not only in control of your own character, but there's sort of ancillary characters that you can bring into the fray, and it just looks badass. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to dig into all of these elements that this story is going to unleash on us. I'm very excited to play Dragon's Dogma 2, and I can't wait to review it for you guys. I also can't wait to review Contra Operation Galuga, which is number 21 on my list. This is Konami's retelling of the original NES Contra game with, of course, improved visuals and some enhancements. There's 4-player co-op gameplay in this thing, lots of new weapons and the environments. Everything's been embellished and enhanced. I think there's probably a little bit of trepidation for this game because the original is so beloved, and Konami took a bit of a stumble with the Metal Gear Solid collection that they just released, but remember, they did an excellent job with both the Contra collection and the Castlevania collection not too long ago, and they know what they have there at Konami. They know their responsibility and their legacy, and they know they're trying to kind of pivot and bring us games that we know and love from their vaults. And I have high hopes and my fingers crossed and big expectations for Contra Operation Galuga. I cannot wait to play this one. I also can't wait to play the remaster of Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door. This is number 20 on my list, and just like Metroid Prime Remastered from the GameCube era, Nintendo was taking a page from that familiar book, no pun intended, and going back to a GameCube game from 20 years ago and putting a fresh coat of paint on it and some quality of life improvements and enhancements. That game was pretty phenomenal back then, and again, it's been a long time since I played it, so don't ask me about the minutia or the major details in that sucker, but I loved it when I played it. I'm very excited to see how this new iteration turns out. I was a big fan of what Nintendo just did with Super Mario RPG, and that's one of the wonderful things that Nintendo can do. Obviously, they can bring us new versions and new iterations of these characters that we love, but they can also go back and put a fresh coat of paint on some of these games and make us fall in love all over again. And I think that's what we're going to do when Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door Remastered comes out this spring. Number 19 on my list is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This comes out in May this year. I can't wait for this movie to come out. I've loved the most recent Planet of the Apes movies. They've all been incredible. Matt Reeves, who directed The Batman, has been a steward of some really killer entertainment. And if you haven't seen the most recent Apes movies, do yourself a favor and do that. This one is set 300 years after the events of War of the Planet of the Apes, which was amazing. And it's different people making this, different actors, but still it has that lineage and that pedigree and the look and feel of these Apes films, and I'm psyched to see what they do. The apes are fighting in and amongst themselves. Humans have been relegated to just be these primitive life forms that are completely controlled by the apes, and there's an effort internally, I think, for the apes and the humans to kind of try to peaceably coexist. So it's going to be cool to see where the story takes us, and maybe we're going to start this whole new trilogy. I guess we'll see how good the movie is and how well it does, but this might be the beginning of a whole new bunch of cool Planet of the Apes movies. Number 18 on my list is another remake for the Switch from Nintendo. This is Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and it's a remake of the 2004 GBA game, which I love. And if you don't know this, it is a spiritual successor to my favorite Game Boy game, original Game Boy game, Donkey Kong, which came out in 1994. And the whole idea there is lifting on the old classic Donkey Kong arcade experience, and the question that Nintendo's developers kind of posed internally and to us as players is, what if we just kept going? And so new levels kept going and going and going, and all kinds of these single screen puzzles and challenges were offered to us as players. And that's why that 1994 Donkey Kong is incredible. But that same theory and that same kind of core design conceit applied to Mario vs. Donkey Kong back in 2004, and everything is beautified now for this Switch, which I can't wait to experience. They're so addictive. You feel like a champion when you solve the puzzles and the dilemmas that you have on these single screens. And I've always wondered why this series hasn't really taken off and become much more of a juggernaut. It would have been great for Nintendo to create a collection for the Nintendo Switch and then to give us a new iteration on this franchise, because there have been other games along the way. You know, maybe this is the beginning of that. I cannot wait to play Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and it's coming up very soon for Nintendo Switch. Number 17 is Rise of the Ronin, and it's going to be amazing to go back into 19th century Japan and be a samurai. This is developed by Team Ninja, who brought out Ninja Gaiden and also the Neo games, and it looks to be kind of a mixture of the two. I'm sure this is going to be incredibly challenging, but you can see it's absolutely beautiful, it's brutal, but it looks like incredibly compelling gameplay. I cannot wait to get lost in this adventure. Rise of the Ronin is coming out in March. It's exclusive to the PlayStation 5, and the only weird thing about this game is that Ghost of Tsushima is also a PlayStation exclusive, and that game kind of treads similar territory. So it's going to be interesting to see how Team Ninja's take on samurai culture and all of this action role-playing gameplay differs from what Sucker Punch did. Number 16 is Hades 2, which goes into early access this year. I don't know if the final 1.0 version of the game is going to hit in 2024. This is the first sequel that Supergiant Games is making. Hades 1 is a beloved action RPG roguelike that is so much fun to get lost in. Hades 2 offers us the opportunity to be a new character and master all kinds of new skills and abilities and cool attacks and stuff. You're taking on all these bad guys and the Titan of Time, and it just looks absolutely stunning. And clearly, Hades has been a game that Supergiant has learned a ton of through the development and all of the extra content that they've added to that experience. So all of that learning is going to go into this new game from the studio, and it should be unbelievable. I cannot wait for Hades 2. Number 15 on my list is a game called Replace, which we've seen little bits and pieces of over the last several years. It's an indie developed title. It's a 2.5D platformer that evokes a lot of the vibe and the ideas of Blade Runner. It's an alternative 1980s kind of world that's been crafted for us. You play this cybernetic being, this sort of fusion of artificial intelligence and human traits, and you're trying to grapple with the reality of living in and amongst humans, and it looks incredibly dystopian and very evocative and beautiful and very much in keeping with everything that we love about Blade Runner. You can feel that influence all the way through this. Cannot wait to play this game. It looks insane. Number 14 on my list is The Penguin, which is coming out later this year, and it's from the world of the Batman, Matt Reeves' incredible The Batman film. It takes place actually a week after the events of the movie, and Colin Farrell stars as Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, and we see kind of his rise to power. And he was unrecognizable as the Penguin, but he was amazing and riveting. You couldn't take your eyes off of the character, and I cannot wait to see what they do with that. I don't know if they're going to drop in Robert Pattinson's Batman every once in a while. I'm wanting to be surprised, but I really loved Matt Reeves' vision for Gotham City and this really cool kind of pulpy look to everything. It definitely felt like something out of the 1930s or something. Excited as hell to see The Penguin. Number 13 is Black Myth Wukan, which is made by a company called Game Science, and it's based around Chinese mythology, and there's all kinds of interesting looking characters that fuse animals and human faces and things. Lots of magic, lots of crazy powers and martial arts and just beautiful combat sequences. It looks really thrilling. It doesn't quite look as pushing the boundaries of state-of-the-art as it did when it was first revealed a couple of years ago, but it still looks compelling, and I cannot wait to see how this thing comes together and how it plays. I'm really looking forward to reviewing that one. Number 12 on my list is the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. We know that Shadow is going to be in this movie. We don't know if Jim Carrey is coming back as Dr. Robotnik / Dr. Eggman. He has been wonderful in this franchise. I love Ben Schwartz as Sonic. I still like the first movie better than the second film, but the movies have been made with such a genuine love for the property and the characters and the zaniness of it all, a great sense of humor, and we have to give huge props to James Marsden, who has done a wonderful job teeing up all of the insanity in these films. And honestly, Idris Elba did a great job as Knuckles as well. I just hope that this new movie doesn't get too overstuffed with all kinds of new characters and actors, and it just becomes difficult to kind of follow the plot. I thought that the second movie was kind of going in that direction, and it wasn't as satisfying as the first film, but there was still great work in that second movie, and I'm eager to see how Sonic the Hedgehog 3 comes together. Number 11 on my list is Avowed. This is from Obsidian Entertainment, who has done a great job making really robust RPGs in the past, and that's going to be no different, I think, with Avowed, which actually takes place in the world of Pillars of Eternity, which I didn't know, and so that's cool. There's going to be this rich kind of universe for the developers to play with. It's a single-player action role-playing experience, and there's going to be a lot of huge areas for us to explore. It's not quite a full open-world experience, but there's going to be tons of cool locations and lots of cool magic abilities and lots of interesting NPCs to interact with and branching storylines and stuff. Obsidian has always been masterful at interweaving all of these different ways to interact with these characters and the repercussions of some of the choices that you might make. I can remember playing Fallout New Vegas and just pissing everybody off on the map. They were all hunting me and chasing me. I'm going to try not to make that happen in Avowed, but I am very, very much looking forward to playing this. I cannot wait to see how it turns out. And hopefully it becomes one of the crowning jewels in Xbox Game Studios' new lineup of titles in 2024. Coming out in April of this year is the new Fallout TV series, which is being overseen by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, who did Westworld for HBO. This is number 10 on my list, and what's interesting about this Fallout show is that it blends that sort of grotesque action and this dystopian kind of nightmare environment with these characters that can also be a little bit zany and goofy, and so it will be a blend of action and comedy and interesting scenarios. I love that Walton Goggins is playing this mutated, noseless bounty hunter type character. He's always fun to watch, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with his role. And I just want to see all of these different creations that we've seen across the Fallout games spring to life in this new way. Clearly, there's a bit of an expectation now that The Last of Us came out last year and was so fantastic. Fallout has to deliver, but Todd Howard, who has been directing these games for a long time and overseeing these games for a long time, is a part of the production team, and he's supervising everything. And he says all of the stuff that's being done for this Fallout show is part of the Fallout universe, but they're new stories. So I'm intrigued. I can't wait to see it. It's heading to our television screens this spring. Number 9 on my list is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I was a pretty big fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife, which was the last Ghostbusters film. It starred McKenna Grace, who returns this time. Paul Rudd's in this one, Finn Wolfhard. We've got the original Ghostbusters cast members, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts. There is a lot of love for the franchise that you can clearly see in this new film, and it looks like an interesting premise. Everybody's gone back to New York City, and there's this new ice age that's threatening the world, and it looks really freaking funny and goofy and over the top, and also with beautiful visual effects. I love the Ghostbusters franchise. I know some of the movies and some of the interpretations of Ghostbusters have been a little hit or miss, but I have high hopes for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Number 8 on my list is a new game from Devolver called The Plucky Squire, and this one took my breath away when I took a look at it. It reminds me a little bit of The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds, that classic 3DS game where Link would transition between a couple of perspectives, running around in 3D and then going into 2D. We've seen that in video games before, but this looks really freaking cool. The characters all jump from the page and transform into 3D as they go in between objects in the game's real world and then back into the printed page. It looks so refreshing and cool. I love that it's an original property. I also love that Devolver continues to surprise us with some of the publishing choices that they make. You never know what is coming from this company, and they are also consummate professionals with curating excellent ideas. So my fingers are crossed that the Plucky Squire turns out great and is one of the titles that we're talking about at the end of the year as one of the best of the year. Number 7 is Joker Folie et Dieu, and pardon my terrible French accent there. This is Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix returning to the Joker universe that they've crafted, which is different from anything that James Gunn might be building with the DC properties. And Lady Gaga is joining the enterprise. I don't know much more than that, and honestly, that's the way that I want to keep it. I want to be surprised by this movie. The first Joker film was brutal and shocking and also beautifully made. Joaquin Phoenix's work as the Joker was astonishingly impressive, and he won all kinds of accolades and awards for the efforts that he put into the first film, and clearly he has been engaged with the idea of returning to this role and examining some new areas that we can go. Lady Gaga is going to be playing Harley Quinn in this one, and I'm super excited to see how this turns out. Apparently, it's a musical, and I cannot wait to see what they have all put together. That comes out in October. Number 6 on my list is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's a direct sequel to Remake, and this is trying to embellish and improve and enhance and reimagine all of the stuff that was put into the original classic PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy experience. But all the characters are back. We're going to see some high stakes and some tragedy and some beautiful visuals and some technical enhancements and improvements. It's actually a fairly quick turnaround from when Remake came out to how soon it's going to be until we're playing Rebirth, but I trust that the development team has just been killing it to put this together. This is one of the most anticipated games of 2024, and judging by what Square Enix did the last time, I don't think it will be a letdown in any way. I cannot wait to play Rebirth. I'm also incredibly excited to play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This is number 5 on my list. I'm probably going to get the review code just as I'm putting the finishing touches on this video together, but this is a 2D action-adventure experience that has its roots in the classic Prince of Persia games. We're playing as a new character. There are new abilities and lots of intimidating enemies to take on. Ubisoft Montpellier, the people that brought us the Rayman franchise and Beyond Good and Evil, a lot of those key very creative people are the people that put this together, so I'm very, very excited to see what they have done for us. It looks incredibly entertaining and addictive, and Prince of Persia has always been one of my favorite franchises in video games, so I am itching to jump into this one. Number 4 on my list is George Miller's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. If you haven't seen Mad Max Fury Road or any of the previous Mad Max movies, you have got to do yourself a favor and go watch those as soon as possible. I am so freaking stoked to see this new film. Even though it's a deviation, we're going in a different direction. We're focusing on the Furiosa character, which Charlize Theron did a great job in Fury Road with. I am a bit shocked that she's not reprising a role, but we're going into the origin story of the character, essentially, and Anya Taylor-Joy is our new Furiosa, and we're also going to see her as a young girl as well, and some of the tragic elements that go into defining this character that is appropriately named. She's got a lot of fury within her and a lot of capability, and she needs it because she's going to be going through some harrowing stuff. Chris Hemsworth is the other big name attached to this movie, and he looks like he's having a lot of fun. But the film itself and this kind of dystopian nightmare universe that George Miller has created across his Mad Max films is so compelling and kind of like Blade Runner, unbelievably influential across popular culture. How many things have we played or seen or read that look like they have directly referenced a lot of what Mad Max has built for us and a lot of what George Miller has built for us? So he's a legend. His movies are incredible. I cannot wait for Furiosa. I also can't wait for number 3 on my list. This is Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft's Massive Entertainment based in Sweden. They did an incredible job with The Division. Actually, Massive has done so many good games in their history, and they're a perfect developer to create an open world action adventure Star Wars experience where we can run around in the open world environments, but also jump into spaceships and fly to different planets and get into all kinds of trouble. And it's not based around lightsabers and force powers. It's a little bit more of the seedy side of Star Wars, a little bit more of the Han Solo-esque kind of gameplay. Lots of cool elements in here. Obviously, it looks gorgeous using all kinds of modern state-of-the-art technology. Ubisoft's got some great game engines to build titles with, and it looks like we're going to have something stupendous here. The developers have definitely got some work cut out for them to make this stand up next to the Jedi games that Respawn has been working on, but I have faith. Massive Entertainment is a great studio, and they've built us awesome games, and I expect no less from Star Wars Outlaws. Number 2 on my list is Dune Part 2. You know this had to be near the top. This is from Denis Villeneuve, carrying on what he started with the original Dune, an incredible cast of actors. He basically has his pick, but we've got Timothée Chalamet returning, we've got Zendaya returning, Austin Butler is in here now, Christopher Walken is a part of this movie. I can't wait to see how he is in the Dune universe, but I'm expecting sumptuous visuals, just incredible visual effects, but also mesmerizing storytelling, but also these actors really owning their moments and escalating everything and just taking us in a little bit more emotionally than we had time to, I think, with the first Dune film. And this was the whole deal with Villeneuve agreeing to do the Dune pictures. He wasn't going to do it if it was just in one movie. He wanted it to be a two-parter. And we'll see how this one does and how it wraps up. I think the only kind of complaint you could levy at the first Dune is that you weren't heavily emotionally invested, and I think that's what we get to experience with this second one, and we'll see where it goes from here. But Dune Part 2 is number 2 on my list. And that leaves me with my first choice for the things that I'm most excited for in 2024. And I think you can predict this one. It's Deadpool 3, Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine after all the pestering and needling from Ryan Reynolds with, his friend. He was begging him to reprise the role. Ryan Reynolds is going to take the lead again as Deadpool, and we're going to have all kinds of casting surprises and all kinds of MCU moments that the team can ridicule and make fun of in Deadpool 3. My concern, of course, is that Disney and Marvel maybe have kind of tamed everything a little bit with this sequel, but the great surprise will be that they haven't. You know, that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping, is that it reaches farther than even Deadpool 1 and 2 did, which were both action and comedy masterpieces. They were both incredible films that you can watch over and over again, and I really hope that's the case with Deadpool 3. I can't wait for this movie. I can't wait for its surprises, and that's why it's number 1 on my list. All right, so there are 24 things that I am incredibly excited for in 2024. I know there are a lot of other choices out there. I want to hear some of those in the comments below. Let me know what you are excited for this year. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to have an incredible journey together this year with lots of really incredible entertainment. Thank you for being here. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.